Hello YouTubers, this is Frosty the Dragon speaking, and I thought I'd do an unusual exercise today. Now, I have heard of another online game called Rift that's been constantly called a complete knockoff, rip-off of World of Warcraft. And I'm too tied to World of Warcraft to actually play Rift, but I thought I'd do a little theory crafting with this soul calculator that I found for Rift. Now, the first build I'm looking at here is a Cleric build for tanking. I'll go over the theory craft here. Armor of Virtue, obvious. Always want armor as a tank. Hammer of Virtue here, dealing additional damage. This is kind of a dump stat for when I need more points to get further up in the tree. Or to get more abilities. Doctrine of Bliss, instant heals are always good, and I believe there's something else triggered around instant heals in this build. Life's Devotion. I'm getting the idea at this point that the Justicar's shtick, the Justicar is the tanking soul for the Cleric, the only tanking soul they get. I have a feeling the Justicar's shtick is just like the Death Knight in World of Warcraft. Self-healing is the only way to go. Reparation here allows the damaging abilities to do heals on the entire group, which is always nice. It's kind of like the Shadow Priest Vampiric Embrace. Again, World of Warcraft. I'm going to keep using World of Warcraft analogies if people call this a ripoff. Seriously. Stalwart Citadel and the later one, Devout Deflection, work off the same thing. Parry chance, block chance. I don't know how they work in Rift, but if they're anything like WoW, it'll help smooth out the damage a bit. And we've got something that increases block chance once again. Shield of Faith. Straight up damage reduction is one of the best things a tank can ever get. Beats armor. It'll even it beats armor, block chance, dodge chance. Anything that bypasses all of that still can't get through this, as far as I know. Regaining mana when you block. Paladins in World of Warcraft did this. The Justicar here gets a big benefit. I had some issues. Now, Reprieve is one I considered. A 5-minute instant panic heal. Not much else I can say on it, really, though. Critical hits causing an extra conviction. I'll get to where you could fiddle around with this build. At the top of the tree, however, Absolution. Rebirth in World of Warcraft, Glyphed. Actually, a little better because they get more mana out of this. And that's the Justicar part of this. Now, you've apparently got 66 points to work with by the time you hit level 50. And this build only puts 36 points in the Justicar soul. I'll get to abilities in a minute. Now, the Shaman. It's supposed to be an offensive soul. It looks more like a buff-based thing, which is kind of handy for tanks. Let's see, we got Unyielding and Dauntless Courage. Threat generation and kind of a dump stat of sorts. Thick-skinned, on the other hand, and is a straight-up tank thing. Favorite of the Valnir. Increasing the healing you receive actually is a great way to take pressure off the healer. Now, for the most dubious point in the entire thing. Glacial Shield. It seems like it should be absorbing next damage in addition to dealing 8 water damage. That seems like that should be good. Kind of like a Thorn Zora with an extra upfront absorption. However, when I get to the final soul, we'll see why I think this is dubious. Overwhelming didn't seem like much to me. Snares are if snares are like movement speed, like I think they are, they're kind of iffy, I think. And I could not, for the life of me, find massive blow anywhere. So crushing. So this one's dubious for also for reasons I'll get to in a minute. Now at this point in the tree, I have a look here. About the only other thing I could potentially see working is maybe Strike of the Maelstrom, but I can't see myself spending enough points to get up there, so we're going to go for something different. Endless Winter. Melee critical hits cause you to restore mana. That's pretty good, I think. Now for the final soul. Purifier, which is technically supposed... I know it cuts off, but it's supposed to be a healer. You've got critical hit of healing spells. I decided to take that over Spirit Guidance for various reasons. Not the least of which is the fact that Justicars have their own healing. Protection of the Ancestors. Increases the amount absorbed by shields that I'll get to in a second. Flame Ward. Extra armor after you cast a heal. This is my idea is that it synergizes with Justicar, which I'll get to in a minute. And that's as far as I go in Purifier, because we've run out of points. Now on to some of the abilities this setup gets. There we go. So from the Justicar Soul and from Shaman Soul, excuse me, we buff up, we basically turn our spell stuff into attack bonuses. Salvation here, kind of the crux of the way Justicars work, apparently, just from reading. All self-healing. Let's see, Strike a Judgment, not that much. I'm assuming Conviction works kind of like combo points, or like Holy Power. Both World of Warcraft terms again. So, yeah. Bolt of Radiance is basically, for reasons that you get once you've read that part, it basically works like a taunt. It'll force the enemy to attack the Cleric. I know it cuts off, but I just want to keep this somewhat down in space. Doctrine of Loyalty. Now, remember when I talked about Flame Ward? This Doctrine of Loyalty is the reason I brought it up. An instant heal, a bit expensive, and it uses Conviction as well, so still powerful. Censure. I decided to scroll it down because it's cutting off so much. Increasing their magic damage taken. And with a fair amount of magic damage we're seeing, this is very good. Mean of Honor is let's see, only one mean can be active at a time. This seems more like a one for a dedicated healer build. Not that important, however. Mean of Leadership. This is how Justicars tank. They got a massive threat generation buff, endurance buff, all that. Reduces all of the healing and damage on non-Justicar abilities, which kind of sucks, but we'll run with it. Purpose. Now remember back here when I brought up Endless Winter? This is kind of like a supercharged version of that, in some ways. Shorter time. Righteous Mandate. Not quite Beacon of Light, but still pretty good. And Doctrine Righteous, blah blah blah, helps out other tanks. And Even Justice. Now if you wanted to do a Justice build, you could probably take a point out of a Shaman like Glacial Shield and stick it into Vengeful Justice to make Even Justice look more like a cleave. Because that's what it looks like right here. Sovereignty is an instant, Probably just for threat generation, but whatever. Righteous Imperative, Area Effect Taunt. Awesome. And finally, Interdict. It's basically an interrupt. That's all it is. Now looking over Shaman Soul. We've got Vengeance of the Winter Storm, which is kind of passive damage if you think about it. You've got a couple Courages that increase Strength, Dexterity, a Heart that increases resistances. Yeah, Lightning Hammer doesn't seem all that important, although the dot is nice. Fated Blow. After the Cleric has been dodged or parried. As far as I'm guessing, tanks are more concerned with survival than hits, so this might come in handy. Oh, there's Massive Blow. Not like it matters, really. Instant heal after critically hit. Melee attack abilities restore mana. Yeah, that's about all there. Now, Shield of the Ancestors here, paired up with Protection of the Ancestors, is the reason why I think Glacial Shield is a little dubious. You've basically got a damage shield every 30 seconds, which gives the healers some crucial seconds to get you back up to full. Let's see here. Blah, 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 not important. Not really that mattering with a tank build. Endurance increase is nice. Flames of the Phoenix, just your standard resurrection. And Cauterize, the reason I went this far down went this far up in the Purifier tree. Curse, Disease, Poison, removes one of them. Actually comes in pretty handy. So there you have it, folks. There you have it, folks. A proposed Cleric tank build. Now, onto the Rogue tank build. Rogue tank build relies on the Riftstalker soul. I chose Assassin and Blade Dancer for the other two, for reasons I'll get to in a minute. Now, going up the Riftstalker tree. Toughened Soul, armor value, already went over it. Great Fortitude. Sounds like more hit points to me, that's about all, but more hit points is always what a tank wants. Phantom Blow. Damage reduction on something that gives combo points. Nice. Boosted Recovery, easier on healers. Exceptional Resilience, went over it already. Now we get to some interesting stuff. Plane shifting is one of the big things of the Riftstalker, and an absorption shield that you get right after plane shifting that absorbs a good portion of all incoming damage. Very handy for smoothing out those damage spikes you get on bosses and the like. Rift Guard. Similar to Rift Barrier, except you can trigger it as a finisher using up your combo points whenever you want. Plane shift abilities. More plane shifts, more shields. More fun. And I'm not going to do an exact calculation on that one. I'll let you guys do that. Planar Refuge. Survival instincts, shield wall, that sort of thing. Improved Rift Barrier, it turns it from a physical barrier to an all-damage barrier. Rift Prison is basically for taking someone out of the battle. Improved Guardian Phase. That just pumps up your health, but again, tanks always want health. Improved Guarded Steel I'll get to when I discuss the actual skills you get. And Planar Switch. Redirect. And a redirect from a tank that uses combo points, it comes in handy when you want to when you want to use your Rift Guard, just pop them off from an almost dead target. Let the DPS finish them off. Get started on the next one. Now, Assassin is the second soul I picked for this. Ruthlessness, critical hit chance, threat, and the only useful one of the first tier. Second tier, you've got critical hits, doing bleed damage, which is basically just a dot for your threat generation. Puncture, nice lead off. Get your 2 combo points, and yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Excuse me a second, folks. Okay. Murderous intent, just threat generation. Cloak and dagger. This is the one that the use of the assassin soul here relies on. After you use assassinate, paralyzing strike, or jagged strike, you deal more and take less for 10 seconds. Paralyzing strike is what this relies on, and I'll get to that in a minute. Blinding powder. It's mostly a filler point, but confusing an enemy to take them out of a battle for a short time can come in handy if you overpull as a tank. This tree, magnify pain, extra damage, extra threat, healing bonus, we'll get to that later. And finally, poison potency. It's basically the reason I spent this much in the tree. Finally, we get to Blade Dancer, which probably should have been a higher priority, but whatever. Quick reflexes, dodge chance, obvious. Strike back. I'm under the impression, just from looking at stuff, that Rift Stalkers are a dual-wield tank. The rogue tanks are just dual-wield and all that. So being able to strike back with both when you dodge, actually very handy here. Then we have Reprisal, which you can which is basically the kind of almost free combo point. I say almost because it's still like 10 energy. If energy works the same way it does in WoW, going up to 100 or whatever, then 10 energy is really, really cheap. Let's just say it that way. And if you're parrying and dodging this much, even better. And finally, because of a certain skill I wanted down the road, I basically threw something in a dump spot like hit chance. Handy for threat, that's about it. Now let's look at this rogue's actual skills. Planar Strike, one of your early threat generators. Shadow Shift, just blink really. Guarded Steel, now this is awesome. Improved Guarded Steel up there adds threat generation, increases the armor value. This is probably the first finisher you would want to use. Just keep this up at all times. Plane-bound Resilience. Just extra endurance. Not important. Still not important. Rift Disturbance. In addition to being an area of effect threat generator, it may just be a one-target threat generator. However, you're mitigating attack and spell power, which every tank wants to decrease the damage coming in on them. Instigate, basic taunt. Shadow Stalk. Doesn't seem that handy for this build. I don't know. Stalker phase, not important unless there's like an encounter with tagging off tanks. That's where this might come in handy. Guardian phase, the heart of your strategy. Really. Shadow Blitz. Now this is basically your AoE tank thing. Kind of like a consecration but in reverse. I don't know. Shadow Warp, not important. Flashback and memory capture. You set a location, you teleport to it. Demonic Circle. And the fact that you can save yourself from being knocked off a platform. Which I've seen some of Ciderhelm's videos, and there looks like there's quite a few fights with knockbacks, so this is handy. Alright, Assassin skills. Savage Strike, not important. Virulent Poison. If we wind up cutting points out of Assassin to put him somewhere else in the build, this is what we use on our weapons. see, final blow, not important. Assassinate, doesn't matter because we're not going to be behind them most often. Stealth, not important. Incapacitate. Actually, stealth might be a handy if you're going to use incapacitate for crowd control. Do tanks do a lot of crowd control in Rift? If they do, this is very good. Otherwise, just leave it to the DPS. Basic thing. Am I too loud? Alright. So, actually, scratch what I said about virulent poison. Lethal poison is what we use if we have to take points out of assassin here. You're increasing critical hit chance, which means you're probably increasing your threat. Elusiveness. And nothing important. Expose weakness. Yeah. This could be your tank stacking dot for switching off when you can switch off targets. Malicious strike, not important. Baneful touch increases the damage of the poison-coated weapons. I don't know. Paralyzing strike stuns the enemy, awards combo points. This was kind of the crux of the whole assassin thing. Yeah. Poison malice. Kind of thorns aura thingy. Yeah, basic. This is why, now, leeching poison is the reason why I spent so much in the assassin. Additional water damage and heals. I don't know about you, but self-healing as a tank, again, takes pressure off healers. If we have to take points out of assassin for something else, take 4 instead of just the ones. It just said just 2 because poison malice you can probably get away with not having. It's leeching poison was kind of the crux here. And if we get so far that we can't go with paralyzing strike, we'll have to scrap the entire assassin soul. Paralyzing strike is that important to this. Okay, now blade dancer, deadly strike not important, keen strike not important. Sidesteps basically gives you a tank cooldown really early in the blade dancer tree. Quick strike not important. Twin strike. This might work as a cleave. I don't know. Doesn't seem like my style though. Combat pose, dexterity bonus. That's it. False blade increases dodge chance. Very nice for a tank. Compound attack. Scratch what I said about twin strike. This is your cleave. Well, this is your finisher cleave. Twin strike is your standard cleave. And weapon barrage gives you an interrupt, basically. So, you've seen... I wouldn't know how they actually work in Rift, but now that you've seen the 2 proposed builds, I want someone to actually try these 2. The Justicar one, set up this way, and the Rift Stalker one, set up in this particular way. We'll see how much my theory crafting from World of Warcraft actually transfers over to its knockoff. This is Frosty, signing out, and good luck.